Staying Alive, 1983, a quick and dirty guide. All right, let's talk about Staying Alive. Yep, that's the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, and it's wild in all sorts of 80s ways. So this movie dropped on July 15th, 1983. Sylvester Stallone, yeah, Rocky himself, directed it and co-wrote it too, teaming up with Norman Wexler. Robert Stigwood, who gave us Saturday Night Fever, produced. And of course, John Travolta's back as Tony Manero. Here's the cast rundown. Travolta as Tony, Cynthia Rhodes as Jackie, Finola Hughes as Laura, Steve Inwood as Jesse, and Julie Bovasso is back as Tony's long-suffering mum. The whole thing runs about 93 minutes, cost around $22 million to make, and it made about $65 million worldwide. Not bad, but not disco-level huge either. Let's get into what actually happens. The movie picks up like 6 years after Saturday Night Fever. Tony's ditched Brooklyn for Manhattan, and he's gunning for a career as a legit dancer. In reality, he's hustling, waiting tables, teaching dance classes, whatever pays the bills, while chasing auditions for big Broadway shows. Jackie, his girlfriend, played by Cynthia Rhodes, is also a dancer and super supportive, but Tony's all over the place, ambition-wise and, romantically. Enter Laura, played by Finola Hughes. She's a fancy British dancer and a bit of a heartbreaker who doesn't treat Tony all that well. Tony finally scores a spot in this over-the-top Broadway show called Satan's Alley, landing the lead opposite Laura. On opening night, he absolutely kills it. But instead of sticking with the fancy new girlfriend, he realizes Jackie's the one for him. How does it end? Classic Tony Manero strut. He leaves the theatre, hits Times Square and shouts, "You know what I want to do? Strut!" All while that iconic Bee Gees' Frank Stallone music blasts and he does his thing down 42nd Street. Now, some behind-the-scenes stuff. After the monster hit that was Saturday Night Fever, everyone wanted more. Stallone came on board to make things glossier and more movie musical than the gritty disco vibe of the original. Travolta went full beast mode, training for months and slimming down. Dude really wanted to look and move like a pro dancer. And the music. Bee Gees were back, obviously. Frank Stallone, Sly's brother, delivered the banger Far From Over, which hit number 10 on the charts and even got a Golden Globe nom. The soundtrack is way more 80s pop rock. Think less disco, more power ballads. But when it hit theaters, critics kinda hated it. People called it shallow and over the top. Roger Ebert gave it a brutal 1-star review. The New York Times thought Travolta looked good and could move, but the story was just too thin. Thing is, audiences still showed up because, let's be real, John Travolta dancing is always worth the price of admission. The movie made money and gave Travolta a bit of a comeback, at least for a while. What about Staying Alive's legacy? It's seen as a super campy blast from the past, and it's the total opposite of the first movie's gritty realism. Some people love it as a guilty pleasure, others, not so much. You can't deny the final strut scene's legendary status, though. It's been spoofed and referenced everywhere. Stallone later came clean. He was totally chasing commercial success, not an artsy masterpiece. Everything's flashier, more glam, more epic. And for better or worse, totally 80s. A couple fun facts. Stallone pops up in a leather jacket cameo, bumping into Travolta. Travolta did most of his own dancing and trained forever to nail those moves. The film racked up 9 Razzie nominations, ouch, but didn't actually win any. The soundtrack still flew off shelves thanks to Frank Stallone's hit. The Satan's Alley number is so over the top, no real Broadway show ever looked like that. To sum up, Staying Alive is a wild 80s relic, shiny, ridiculous, super dancey. Critics hated it, but it still got a place in pop culture thanks to all that strutting and Travolta's sweaty commitment. Want more 80s movie nostalgia? Subscribe to Movies of the 80s.